To the deaf who gained the ability to hear, what sound surprised you the most? A guy who went to my college talked about how, when he got his hearing, he was surprised that lamps don't make noise. You flip the switch, the light comes on, no noise. He said that he thought for a minute that he'd lost his hearing again. My aunt didn't know that rain was so loud. Okay, so this is not at all the same as being deaf, but I had a load of ear problems with chronic infections for several years as a youngster, and one day I had my ears microsuctioned. Afterwards, I walked out of the room and I realized I could suddenly hear all this amazing background noise. People walking in the corridor, the fan turning on the ceiling, the receptionist shuffling paper. It was incredible. I waited way too long to get hearing aids. First time I flushed the toilet, it was so loud I panicked and ran out of the bathroom. I was so confused the first time I heard the rain pattering on the roof, or the sound of carpet when you move your foot. Oh, and loved hearing TUI birds singing outside. Bilateral CIs here. I initially grew up with hearing aids, but they only do so much. They just act as an amplifier really. When I got the implants, I heard crickets for the first time. It was totally strange, and I went inside to get my parents because there was a strange rattling / clicking sound near my dog's kennel. They thought it was a rattlesnake and were very cautious. My mom goes out and comes back smiling and tells me that I was just listening to crickets. Another bit, post implants, I was able to carry a conversation with someone without looking at them. It was so bizarre and lead to an almost vulnerable feeling. When I first got my hearing aids in high school, I didn't know the fire alarm in the girls' bathroom made these wee little bettis, just to let you know it still worked. I was also so quiet my first day, actually being able to hear all my friends cornered me after school ended to make sure I was okay. Needless to say, they were also excited that I could hear too. I was severely hearing impaired and got my first set of hearing aids in 2nd grade. The doctor's office was located in a football stadium, so the hallway was one long continuous oval shape. The doc told me to step out into the hall and see what new sounds I might hear. I stepped out and looked down the hall both ways, and I heard something. A clickety clackety click clack echoing unbelievably off the walls. I could not see anything until the person came around the curve. High heels. The most surprising sound though was the sound of the world. When I walked outside, I physically crouched down because of how loud it was. The collective sounds of the city. It was so loud I went back to the office and told them I could not handle it. The world was too loud. I wanted it turned down. They told me I had to get used to it, so we left. Many years later I got a digital set of hearing aids and they picked up on different sounds. When I got home I went out back and my dog was looking up at something barking and would not stop, so I went to see what it was. I looked up and there were about 100 little black birds sitting on the wires, and suddenly the sound came in. I was amazed. I looked up for so long it hurt my neck. The sound was one big one at first, and then I started to hear individual tweets. I could not believe such little things could make such big noise, and considering how loud it seemed to be, I could not believe I had not heard it before. The first time I heard crickets chirping, I was like, what? A childhood friend got hearing aids at age 13 and was fascinated by all sorts of things that he found out made noise, but what totally cracked him up one day was the squeaky floorboards in his house. The idea that just walking around and having the floor squeak in random spots just had him rolling with laughter. I have bilateral cochlear implants. The most surprising sound to me had to be the world's music, birds. Or maybe that's just the drones beeping. Not me. This was asked before, and a guy posted that he thought it was weird sunshine made no noise at all. He thought it would have a hum or something. Closely related, but I work at a board game cafe, and one of my regulars had a severely diminished sense of smell / taste. When he was about 20, the doctors found that it wasn't because that bit of his brain was underdeveloped, but because there was a tiny growth putting pressure on it. They easily removed it, and he went nuts trying every combination of coffee flavorings and tea for months afterwards. Weird stuff. Maple and caramel. Peppermint and coconut. Interesting question. I had hearing aids since age 1 until I couldn't hear anymore by 28 after a head injury. I spent the next 5 years just resting my ears in silence and getting used to it. Then I got a cochlear implant at 33. The first thing I heard was my autistic nephew's voice, realizing how kids actually sound and not just how I thought they sounded from a lip reading perspective. The sound that surprised me the most was laughter. You can see someone laughing and lip reading, but you cannot really begin to guess what their laugh sounds like. I forgot how unique people's laughs are, and how laughter is also sort of a hearing culture aspect verbally. You aren't just seeing a smile, you are hearing a smile from across the room. All the times I couldn't hear and saw someone smiling, I realized they could have been laughing as well. I just couldn't hear it, or recognize it as a communication tool of expression. My mum got hearing aids when she was in her 20 years, and she said the first thing she heard when she left the hospital was birds singing. She heard it on TV, but thought they made it louder for effect. My cousin got hearing aids when he was 31 or 32, and for the most part didn't need them for day-to-day life. He got scarring from ear tubes when he was very little, and just didn't know there were sounds he was missing his whole life. This mostly presented itself in not hearing higher ranges, like his mom, sisters and girlfriends' voices, who they just assumed he was ignoring. He actually couldn't hear them talking a lot of the time. The thing that wasn't surprising, but is more annoying to him now, are potato chip bags and the sound of his coat swishing as he walks. So I guess this is sort of the reverse, a person being surprised by something a sort of deaf person heard. I was born around 60% deaf and had chronic ear infections until I was 3. Around 14 months old I got tubes put in, and it was then that my doctor and my parents realized I had not been hearing very well. Anyway, sometime after getting the tubes, my mom is futzing around the kitchen while I am sitting on the floor playing with toys. Behind my back she makes a startling noise like dropping a pot into the sink or knocking something over. Whatever it was, it made a clatter. I whipped my head around to look at her and the source of the noise, and it completely spooked her. She had never seen me react to any type of noise or sound before. I obviously don't remember any of this as I was a toddler, but I heard the story many times. I'm mostly deaf without my prosthetics on, and what always surprises me is just how freaking loud everything is. D. The sound of a running tap. Ye gods, why do they have to be so loud? The sound of silence. No, I'm kidding. But I did have a friend who regained his hearing, and he said that the weirdest sounds always came from birds. He said for a while it was difficult to drown them out as he went about his days. That boiling water makes noise. Seriously, I was shocked. Even to this day I pick up different sounds all the time. Sometimes I have to take off my hearing aids because all the noises give me headaches. Going to the movie theater is hard. I have to take off my hearing aids so I can enjoy the movie, but then I miss out on 80% of the dialogue. Unless the characters are facing the camera, then I can read their lips. My son got his first CI when he was 18 months. Pre-CI, when he would get mad he would scream this high-pitched, brain-piercing scream that was beyond awful. About a week after activation his brother took his favorite car and out came the demon scream. He scared himself so badly that he pulled his CI off and started to cry. He never screamed like that again. Not completely deaf, but a profound loss. When I first got my aids, the sound of my hair drove me nuts, and was very surprised how loud my pee was streaming into the toilet. My mom was very surprised at how turkeys sounded. Not sure what she expected, but evidently not the regular gobble. My fiance has severe hearing loss. He got hearing aids for the first time in his life last year, in his 20s. One of the things he said that stuck out to me is that he didn't realize birds make this constant background noise, even when you're indoors. He also gets really flustered and asks me when there's a noise he can't identify. Sometimes it's cars going by outside or something simple, other times it's something that I can't figure out either, and he always looks slightly panicked when that's the case. But living with someone who can't hear very well has also given me a lot of insight into how lucky I am that I can unassisted, as well as how much of the world revolves around sound and the unique difficulties not being able to hear presence. Every day is an eye-opening adventure, TBH. One thing I'm sad about, though, is that I feel like he can't really enjoy music the way I do. Hearing aids aren't perfect, and I know he misses out on a lot of sounds that make some songs very pleasing or interesting to listen to. According to his reactions, a lot of music that isn't simplistic sounds screechy, and most background noises in music irritate him. Dog barking. I expected a sound, I don't know, something unique to dogs. Everyone talks about how all animals have different sounds. A dog bark is just like shouting. Oh, I have a great story. Friend's sister was very hard of hearing, nearly deaf. She got cochlear implants. At work I was asked to help her pair her implants with her new phone, because they are freaking Bluetooth. While I'm doing this she is happily telling me how sensitive they are. I can hear paper. She had no idea paper sliding on paper made a noise. She then told me she could hear her hand sliding on the wall, and how cats annoyed her because sometimes they made a sound, but sometimes they just made the action but no sound. But then out of the blue she says, "What's weirdies? Boobs don't make noise. You really think they would?" I lost it. I cracked up. My partner gained the ability to hear in high school after getting her first hearing aid. After she had collected it, her mother had to pop in somewhere and left her in the car. She could hear this ticking sound, but couldn't work out what it was. So perplexed by this was she that she left the car and sat the other side of the car park just in case there was something wrong with the car. When her mother returned, the mysterious noise was unveiled. Analog clock. I remember a https://www.reddit.com/r/squaredit.com/d8m4z/people_were_gained_f_were_f_fly212. My old roommate in New York City got implants at, I think he was 25 or 26. He was shocked that the radiators in the house didn't make noise. He could feel them and was absolutely sure, given their shaking and vibrating from time to time, that they were going to be quite noisy. On the flip side, he was deeply annoyed by the buzz of fluorescent lighting, which he did not expect to make noise. I was moderately hearing impaired till I was 20. My cat purring was the best and most surprising part, because I had always felt it, but never heard it. Not deaf myself, but I remember reading about some deaf guy who never knew farting made a sound. No one had told the poor fricker, and hell had made it to his 20s farting like a champ with zero shame. Probably made up, but still gave me a giggle. My mom grew up in California. She was shocked when she first saw falling snow because it didn't sound like jingling bells. Okay, that doesn't have much to do with the question, but I thought it was interesting. I was deaf till about 6 to 7 years old. Our family cat purring shocked me. I knew it vibrated, but I never knew there was an actual noise to it. My uncles grew up with a guy who got cochlear implants at like 30 years old. He was terrified when he heard a cicada at night time. He thought it was a bird. Not deaf myself, but I read someone who expected the sun to make a bhmmm sound. Imagine watching The Lion King the day you get to start hearing and being amazed by the sunrise scene accompanied by NAAAA and then waking up early the next day to see the sunrise and being disappointed it doesn't make any sound. All of them. The way the wind blows against the grass. The way the leaves rustle, and the sounds of pretty birds and their wings follow with them. The way the water falls on the rocks, the faucet, the shower. The way the rain hits the roof of your car, or how the thunder rumbles your feet. The melancholy footsteps of people passing by, or the quiet sniffles of a laughing child. The nostalgic motorcycle on a summer evening. The way the delicious food sizzles on the stove. Any and all sounds. The sounds we take for granted the most. My daughter was very hard of hearing due to glare. When she was 4 she had grommets placed to drain the fluid. She woke me up at sunrise the morning after the operation cause she could hear the birds outside. It was a bittersweet moment for me as I was pleased to see the look of joy on her face, but greatly saddened that I hadn't realized how bad her hearing had been for her whole life so far. She also come to realize she hates ambulances and loud motorbikes. I'm not deaf, but my fiance is a deaf/hard of hearing elementary school teacher. She focuses primarily on giving deaf kids extra help in the fields, where they tend to fall behind, and works with their general education teachers on ways to better help those kids. One time she came home from work and told me one of her kids had farted in class and then being confused why other kids were laughing. She had to explain to the kid that farts weren't silent and that everyone else can hear it, and the kid was absolutely mortified. Reminds me of a joke about hearing aids. An old man comes back to the hearing aid acoustician a week after he got his hearing aids for some fine tuning. The technician did his job and then asked the man, "So, how did your family react to you being able to hear again?" The old man answered, "Oh, I haven't told them yet, but I've already changed my last will 3 times this week." Silence. MSEC equals 2000/.